If you work in conversion optimization, user experience design, or you're a digital leader, you probably think of these as separate disciplines. Different skill sets, different tools, different conversations. But treating them as separate entities is exactly why you're failing to see the whole impact of when they work together, because these three areas are deeply interconnected. They build on top of one another in a way that makes each more effective. And if we're only working on one of these areas without considering the other, then you're solving the wrong problems, or at best, you're only solving part of the right problem. I know this because my own work spans all three, which makes me sound often like I'm either a confused generalist or I'm just cobbling together whatever random ideas come out just to secure a consulting gig. People often ask me what it is that I actually do, and I don't fit neatly into a single box. When I list all of these three areas, conversion, UX, and design leadership, I can see the confusion on people's faces. I sometimes feel like that conspiracy theorist from the memes, the one standing in front of the pinboard covered in red string, ranting about how it's all connected. But it really is all connected. And if you work in any of these fields, you should be thinking holistically, and you should have an interconnected approach as well. So let me walk you through how this actually works in practice and why you should be thinking in this way too. So let's start with conversion optimization. Ultimately, the goal of almost every project that I take on, and probably you do as well, is to improve the company's conversion rate through some kind of website or app. Sometimes that means acquiring new customers. Sometimes it just means retaining existing ones with a good experience. But the end goal is always the same: make the company more profitable through their digital channels. In straightforward cases, we can achieve this through traditional conversion optimization techniques, things like A/B testing, interface design improvements, refined copy and messaging. These are the tools you'd expect anyone who is doing any kind of conversion optimization work to do, and often that's enough to move the needle. But more often than we like to admit, those surface level fixes aren't sufficient. The conversion problems run deeper than a poorly worded call to action or a confusing checkout flow. When that happens, I need to look at the entire user experience, examining usability issues, carrying out user research, mapping out all of the other touch points where customers interact with the brand, understanding the full journey that the user is on. That, of course, is where user experience design and strategy comes into play. But here's the thing. Sometimes even comprehensive user experience work isn't enough because the real problem exists entirely beyond the screen. Let me give you an example. I once worked with a company who sold frozen ready meals to elderly customers. They wanted to improve their website conversion rate. Seemed to be a fairly straightforward brief, nothing particularly unusual. But when we carried out user research, we discovered that the elderly audience was nervous about multiple aspects of the experience, none of which had anything to do with the website or web design itself. They were worried about entering credit card details online because of fraud and scams. They were anxious about a strange delivery man that they didn't know turning up at their door and wanting to access their house and speak to them. They were concerned about unloading heavy trays of frozen products into their freezer, something they just couldn't do. Now, in most companies, a user experience designer would hit a wall at this point. You can't redesign a website to make somebody feel safe about delivery drivers or less anxious about lifting heavy boxes. The best you could do would be to make the existing service as palatable as possible through clever messaging and reassuring copy. But in a company with a strong culture of design leadership, things are very different. A UX designer can be instrumental in shaping the solutions to these kinds of problems, solutions that go way beyond polishing existing products to fundamentally shaping the service itself. This is where the design leadership coaching aspect of my work becomes essential. In that frozen ready meal company, we didn't just optimize the website, we fundamentally changed the offering based on what we learned about the user. Customers got the same delivery driver every time, and when that wasn't possible, they were notified in advance by being given a photo of the driver. All drivers were police tracked so customers could feel confident about safety. And the driver didn't just dump the product and leave, they actually unpacked everything into the customer's freezer. Customers could even reorder directly with the driver if they didn't want to use the website and enter their credit card details online. The user experience shaped the product itself and, by extension, delivered the improved conversion rate the client originally asked for. You can see how these three areas that appear unrelated are actually deeply intertwined. This interconnected approach is much more representative of what real user experience design should be all about, rather than just pushing pixels around a screen. So what does all of this mean for your work? If you're working in conversion optimization, start asking deeper questions about the user experience. If you're doing UX work, understand how it connects to business outcomes and conversion. And if you're in design leadership, recognize your influence should extend beyond the edge of the screen to reshape products and services based on what users actually need. Because at the end of the day, conversion optimization teaches you what matters to the business, user experience design teaches you what matters to the customer, and design leadership gives you the organizational influence to do something meaningful about both. And once you start seeing those connections, you can't unsee them.